Hey everybody, today I wanted to show you how you could build a full stack application using Cursor and how you can actually deploy it so that it can be used out in the real world. The product I'm going to be building is going to be a survey platform. It's going to allow you to design surveys with various different question types and then send those surveys out to collect feedback. I'll also have an analytics dashboard that will allow you to do some basic analysis on the responses that you get in response to the survey. I wanted to make this video to show how Cursor can really be used to build a full stack application. Now the project did take me 5 hours to complete, and when I put the video together, I just cut out a lot of moments where I was just sitting there thinking to myself, or I was typing the prompts. But you'll still be able to see all of the prompts in their complete form in the video. So before we dive in, let's just take a look at the tech stack and the product requirements that I'm going to be building towards. Of course, we'll be building using Cursor and Claude Sonnet 3.5, which I believe is the best AI model for coding that is available right now. We're going to be using the MERN stack, Mongo, Express, React, and NodeJS, so that we have JavaScript full stack. This is going to make it easier coordinating changes across files, and I won't have to be mentally switching between different languages the whole time. Additionally, because we're using AI, it understands JavaScript very well because there are so many examples that it's actually been trained on. So I found this to be a really effective stack to work with. We're going to be using Mongo as the database because we're going to have very custom and flexible document structures here, so it doesn't really fit very well into a SQL database, and I think Mongo is going to serve our purpose here well. In terms of some of the other software, I'm going to be trying out Cloudflare Pages. I've previously used Google Firebase hosting to host my websites, but I did notice that Cloudflare Pages seems to have an unbeatable deal for hosting. Look at this. For $0, you get unlimited bandwidth and unlimited websites that you could host on Cloudflare Pages. I mean, it honestly seems a little too good to be true, so I'm going to try it out and we'll see how it works. But keep in mind, that's really only the front end that's going to be hosted by Cloudflare Pages. We're still going to need a server to collect our responses and put them in the database. So for the back end, I'm going to stick with Google App Engine, which is a pretty scalable system, and you can actually cap the amount of usage, the amount of instances that are spun up to handle requests, so you're not going to blow up your costs like you would in a serverless sort of situation. Keep in mind that there are easier ways to actually deploy your software, but they will come with higher costs and potentially being locked into other clouds and things like that. So the approach that I'm taking is going to be a balance of scalability, price, and ease of setup. I'm going to be using Firebase Auth because I've just found that to be the simplest and most straightforward auth solution, and it comes with a bunch of those, login with Google and Apple and all the other things. So I found that to be pretty smooth, but if you've used a different auth solution, let me know in the comments because I'd love to try something new out as well. Finally, I'm going to be using GitHub, and this is pretty much just to keep track of my code, make sure everything gets saved, and if I have some big Cursor compose query that I want to make, I can make it and then roll back the changes if something goes terribly wrong. Okay, so that's the tech stack. Now let's take a look at the product requirements. We're going to build a survey platform, like I said, so we're going to have authentication throughout this whole thing because we want people to be able to see the surveys that they designed and not just all the surveys that have been created on the platform. So we're going to have login and users. We're going to have the ability to create surveys, which will have a variety of different question types. Of course, we're going to need a way to send out a link so that we can collect responses. And then we're going to have an analytics dashboard with some customized charts that are based on the questions that you actually have in your surveys. Okay, so first let's go ahead and set everything up. So let's start with picking a domain name for our website. And I'm going to be trying the Cloudflare Registrar here since I am going to be using Cloudflare Pages. So hopefully that minimizes the amount of DNS configuration that I have to do when I actually deploy the site. Let's see, magic survey, maybe something like that. Survey Mage. Hey, look at that, surveymage.com is actually available. Is that a good name? I don't know. Yeah, I think I'll just go with Survey Mage. I mean, it sounds fine. I wanted it to have kind of a magic feel to it. All right, here we go. Great, so we got Survey Mage. Let's see, we'll add Pages site. And this is going to be where we deploy it eventually on Cloudflare pages, but we're going to use the CLI, which is the command line, to deploy to it. So we'll not worry about this for now, but we got the domain name. All right, then I'll head over to GitHub. We'll create a new private repository, survey Mage here. All right, and I like to create the repo. I always put the UI and the backend in the same repo. And for some of the newer developers, GitHub is a version control system. Basically, it's just a fancy way of saying that you can save your code to the cloud. And it also, when you get into a situation where you have multiple developers, it makes it really convenient to figure out how you can merge your code together without running into conflicts. For me, I'm just going to be the only person working on this, but I like to have it as a way to save my work so that it's not only on my local computer. Okay, so I have this repo created. Let's go to GitHub on my desktop, and we're going to clone that repo to be local. So we're going to go ahead and clone that repo. All right. Now that's going to create a folder on my computer. And this is GitHub Desktop. You can download it on their website. Okay, now we're finally going to open up Cursor. And I'm going to open a folder. Okay, we'll pick Survey Mage. All right, here we are. A completely blank project. And now I'm going to do two things. I like to create a server folder, and then I like to use Create React App to create my front end. So we got server. Now to create my React repository, I'm going to go over to terminal, new terminal. And for newer folks, this is just a way to directly tell your computer what it needs to do. So in my case, I'm going to go create React app, and I'll create a UI folder with this create React app command. And this is also actually initiating the React project, so I'll be able to iterate from there. While that's working, let's go over into the server. I'm going to actually open another terminal window here. We'll go to the server, and we're going to do npm init. This is going to create a node project inside of here. So just call it server. All right, and then I'll just create an index.js. This is going to be my server. So just to demonstrate this simply, right, we're going to have a UI. It's talking to the API, which is a part of the server, and there's going to be other backend logic in there, and that's going to talk to our database, which is going to be Mongo. Okay, so if we go back here, we see the UI folder is all filled out now. The React project is created, and now we can do npm start, and that's going to start our React app. All right, there we go. Okay, so as a part of this video, I was actually planning to demonstrate using v0 by Vercel to work with Cursor and to show how I could move things in and out pretty easily. But funny enough, this was actually my first time using v0, and I got stuck with some dependencies in shadcn and needing to switch to TypeScript. So I'm just going to put that aside for now so that I could finish this video and make it the way that I've been making apps with plain Cursor. But I'll go back at some point and give v0 another try. Probably figure out what to do to set it up, and then I could actually show a video showing how those two tools can work together. But when I was trying to do it for this video, it just didn't really work out. But for now, let's go ahead and just build it directly with React and JavaScript. All right, so we got our React app. I'm going to go ahead and start designing some of the components, specifically around the survey questions. So we'll go ahead and open up the chat. That's Control L, and we're going to go to app.js, and we will give a description to Cursor of what we want to do with this project, and then get it started on some of the smaller tasks that are going to be reasonable for it to handle. Okay, so my prompt is, I am building a survey design tool. Please create a component that will be called Survey Designer. It should include new question designer and question preview components in it. The question designer component should have 4 options for question types, and then allow the user to add or remove options and add the question to the survey so that we see it in the question preview. The 4 initial question types will be multiple choice, checkbox list, short text, and long text. I could use Cursor Compose to do this, but I found it doesn't always fill out the files with all the details that it needs to have, so I still prefer to just use the sidebar chat to do this sort of thing. Create new folder here, components. So it looks like, you know, we're going to update app.js. That's fine. Control Enter to accept all the changes. I'm really hoping to get a create new file button here, but right now we still have to create files manually unless you use Cursor Compose. So survey designer. Okay. Okay, we got our question designer. And the question preview. Okay. Okay, so right now we got this huge header, and down here we have some, okay, we can choose. All right, let's style all of this using Tailwind. Let's style all of this using Tailwind and use Lucid React icons when needed. Please tell me any dependencies I need to add. So this is going to go and update those files. So Tailwind is the approach we're going to take to CSS. Basically, it makes it so that class names and HTML tags are going to apply a certain style to the components that you create. So we're going to install these dependencies so we can actually use Tailwind in our project. Okay, we'll run. Oh, whoops, so we installed that in the wrong folder. We need to make sure we're doing this in the UI folder. Okay, then we're going to run npx tailwind css init. Awesome. We'll add this to here. app.js. I got a couple of changes there. That's cool. And this is the way that I like to work with Cursor, is I'll just have this chat in the sidebar and I just go file by file. That way I can actually see the changes that it's making. And in this case, I'm just accepting them as we go, and I'll kind of refine all of it after I get the whole thing working. So first get it working and then make it pretty. Okay, so flipping back, all right, let me refresh. Still doesn't look like we're using Tailwind here. Maybe this needs to go at the top. Let me try restarting this maybe. Okay, so let's see what's going on here. I'm gonna use the image capabilities of Cursor to see what is going on. See, I'm just going to basically ask it to make it look better, and I'm showing it the image. So we'll see. The issue might be related to how we're importing Tailwind, but I'm just going to see if we can, yeah, maybe if it adds some padding, maybe we'll see this more clearly. Okay, that doesn't really change anything. I don't think Tailwind is working properly. Okay, I'm just gonna say, please check to see if Tailwind is being used properly. The style classes seem to be ignored, and I'm gonna use the whole code base. So we'll see what it has to say. Okay, our Tailwind project's not configured correctly. Okay, content array is empty. Okay, here we go. Oh, look at that. That immediately made a huge difference. Hey, this actually looks really nice now. Okay, fantastic. So that was obviously the issue, is we were ignoring all of our JS files with Tailwind at first. Okay, so now that we have this, let's just try it out. Let's add a couple of questions. Let's say, what is your name? All right, great. And let's say, tell me about yourself. Nice. Okay, we got multiple questions going here. What is your favorite ice cream flavor? Okay, cool. Let's see. Well, that's not quite right. So we'll work on that multiple choice option. Let's see what the checkbox list looks like. Okay. Okay, cool. Okay, so we're able to add questions to the survey. Let's see, if I try to type something, it doesn't actually let me type. So let's go back to Cursor and we're going to give it this list of feedback on things that we want it to change, and we'll go from there. Okay, so the main problem seems to be in question preview. And I'm going to tag specific files where I'm doing this. Okay, we're basically going to tell it the problems that we're seeing and ask it to update it to work as expected. And it can kind of connect the dots on these sort of things. So it looks like it's adding a handle input change. That's nice. There's a lot more logic for these various question types. All right, let's go ahead and apply these changes and see what that looks like. Okay, there we go. Hey, look at that. Amazing, amazing. This is exactly what we wanted. Excellent. Okay, let's actually rename this to survey preview, because that's essentially what we're doing here. Survey preview. I'm just double clicking on that function name, and Cursor already knows that I want to rename it, so I can just press tab and here. All right, there we go. Let's go to the survey designer and make this kind of full screen so that we have the question designer on the left and then the survey kind of taking up the 2/3 to the right. Also, I want to make it so that when we scroll down, the survey preview scrolls, but question designer stays sticky so that we can always see the new question config. I am bundling a few different requirements here, but I've found that with Sonnet 3.5, Cursor is able to actually work with that, and it delivers some pretty good results. All right, so there's some changes here. I think that's the only place it needed to make changes. Okay, fantastic. Okay, so that looks better, but I kind of don't want these. Okay, I'm going to go back here. I think there is some issue with this header, and then, yeah, we have different widths. Remove the header and make it full width. All right, here. Yeah. All right, pretty simple. Okay, amazing. That's what we want for now. Okay, multiple choice. Okay, I just want to add a few more questions here. Okay, and it looks like it's scrolling down, which is really great. That's what we wanted. So it's going down on the survey, and this is giving us a pretty good preview of what the survey is going to look like. Okay, I don't want this type here. I also want to be able to move these survey questions around to change the order, and I want to be able to delete them. So let's go ahead and go over to the survey preview and give it that list of changes. Okay, so we're going to add some drag and drop. And then we'll be able able to delete questions with a trash icon in the top right. And finally, we'll remove the question type text. Okay, so here we go. There's a bunch of changes. Apply that, accept all. Okay, we're going to need some new libraries that we install. Okay, we're in the UI. Here we go. Ooh, actually, I don't want React icons. Please use seed icons. But we will go ahead and install this drag and drop library. Okay, there we go, the seed. All right. Okay, so those don't look too pretty. It's not really what I had in mind. Let's see. Okay, cannot find droppable entity with ID. We're probably going to have to add Okay, I'm going to just paste the error and we'll see if it can figure out what is wrong. It's probably because it's receiving the questions as a prop and then it's trying to shuffle those questions. But let's see. It has some Yeah, it's still an issue. I'm going to give it a little hint. Okay, it thinks I'm right, but we'll see if I'm actually right. Yeah, so we're going to use local questions instead. Yeah, that looks great. Okay, I'm still having the same issue. And when I run into the same issue for, a few minutes like this, I'll often just pause and take a look at the code because you can easily get really carried away just asking the LLM over and over and over, and it'll just regenerate code and get confused. Maybe I could also open a new chat and try that out, but it often helps to try to understand what is actually happening here. Let me look up that library, React Beautiful DND. Yeah, I mean, that should look real nice if we can get that to work. I'm gonna actually, since I just went to the documentation for this library, I'm going to take this code that they have in this example and just give it to Cursor and see if that could help it figure out what's wrong. Okay, paste a bunch of code. Okay, and let's see if we can update the component to work in the same way. Okay, still a problem. Just trying to restart the app, maybe see if it was some issue with the installation of the library. Nope, still a problem. Let me look that up. Just remove the React strict mode. Well, I don't really want to do that. Okay, let's see if I remove strict mode. Let's see if that helps. Oh, look at that. It actually does. It's kind of funny. Okay, yeah, we also needed to update the parent component to add the question change. Okay, hey, look at this. Okay. Okay, so I don't really want to remove strict mode, but this other answer seems to offer an alternative way, and now we actually know that it has something to do with strict mode for some reason. So let's go back to the component. We'll say all right, we'll say here's some code, you know, can you use that? Okay, strict mode droppable JS in a utils folder. Let's go ahead and add new folder, utils, strict mode droppable. All right, back to survey preview. We'll apply those changes. See if that strict mode droppable works. Yes, it does. Okay, look at that. That looks really good. And again, still on question change is a problem. So I'll just go ahead and say let's make sure also to avoid any recursive loops, because if it updates the parent and then the parent updates the props and that updates this one, you know, we could potentially get in a big loop. So I just asked it to avoid that issue. All right, here we go. Now we can actually properly rearrange these questions. Great. Okay, now we made a lot of changes in this survey preview to add all the drag and drop, and I'm just a little worried it might have added some code that's unnecessary. So I'm just gonna do a little bit of cleanup, and I'll just say added. We'll just basically ask it to clean up any code. Okay, so that's a really minimal change there. I don't know. I don't even know what it's doing there, though. I don't actually like that refactor. I'm gonna avoid it. So there wasn't really much that it cleaned. We'll just leave that alone. Okay. Let's extract the specific question to a. Okay, let's extract that into a question preview component, because this file is already 150 lines long. I like to keep files, you know, 100 lines or so. I find that when it gets to be multiple hundreds of lines, Cursor does have a harder time processing that much context when you tag things. So I try to just be proactive in my refactoring. Okay, yep, we're removing a bunch of code. Great. Let's just refresh. All right, does it still work? Yes. Okay, that works. Okay, cool. Let's see if the question deletion works. Yep, it does. Amazing. Okay. All right. So let's clean up the styling here a little bit. I just want this to be all the way on the left. I want to add some more padding. Okay, we'll add padding around the whole question, and then we'll put the grabbable icon to the left. I don't want a hamburger menu. Oh, it looks like I was using the wrong file. Huh. That makes a lot of sense. Okay, so just be careful with that. Keep in mind the context that you're submitting. I was looking at this survey preview. I should have been on the new question preview. Let me just go ahead and start over, and I'll go to the history. Okay, I want to ask that question. Whoa. And let's undo those changes. Okay, Control Enter. That's back to what we had. Okay. No, not in survey preview. Whoops, I did it again. Question preview. Yeah, that looks a bit cleaner. All right, here we go. That's actually what I want. Okay, awesome. So I got this question designer looks pretty good to me. Oh, did you see that? That is super weird. When I rearrange these, look at the values. The questions get changed, but the values stay in their location. That's a pretty funny bug. Let's go ahead and fix that. Okay, so question preview and survey preview as well. Okay, so we got survey designer, question preview, survey preview. We will modify all of the files that we need to. Okay, in survey preview, we're gonna fix the answers. Oh, okay, that was the only one we needed to do. Okay, there we go. Now it works as expected. Okay, so at this point I have this survey designer looking kind of like I want it. I mean, there's definitely features that I could add, like adding questions in between questions, making it responsive, more question types, but this is roughly what I was looking for. So let's go ahead and try to make it a full application, then we can flesh out all of the details and additional features later. Now let's go ahead and add authentication and login so that we can actually save this survey and then see it in a list of surveys that we've previously designed, and then we could also analyze the results for those surveys. We're going to be using Firebase Auth, so I'm going to go to Firebase and create a new project here. Create a project. Survey Mage. Let's see if that's available. It's already taken. Survey Mage 1. Sure. Actually, we don't even need Google Analytics. I would create the project. What Firebase is going to allow us to do is use the auth functionality to make it so that our users are managed by Google and authenticated by Google, and all of the email interactions and stuff is sent by Google, so we just don't have to worry about that. And Firebase Auth has a very generous free tier, so I found it to be a good solution, but I'd love to hear about some alternative options I could try. So we'll get started. We will have anonymous enabled, and we'll also have email and password. And I also want to have sign in with Google, which is going to require us to add a support email for the project. Okay, so we got our providers configured, and now we're going to have to add it to our project. Let me see, I'm trying to remember where to... I'm also going to add surveymage.com as an authorized domain, and this is something that is easy to forget to do. That way when I do deploy it to my actual website, it's going to be able to accept the users there as well. I'm having a hard time finding the public keys, so I think I might have to create an app here, a Firebase app. Okay, yeah, so we're going to add this web app register. We're not going to use Firebase hosting because we're going to try out Cloudflare pages. Okay, and then so there's our public configuration, which we'll paste into our app. Okay, I'm going to copy that npm install Firebase in our UI. So adding Firebase to our project is going to allow us to associate a user with the particular session that they're using our app in. And when any request goes to our server, it's going to have a token that we can verify on the server side as well. So we know which user is making what sort of request and if it's a valid user. So we're not talking to our server yet, but we're going to go ahead and add the ability to log in. And we'll also make it so that when a user arrives on our platform for the first time, they're going to log in as an anonymous user, which means we don't know their email. We don't really know if they're legitimate or not. So I'm planning to allow anonymous users to create surveys, but not save them, just to prevent any sort of abuse on our app. Let's go over to app.js, and we will tell it about Firebase here. Okay, I'm going to take that Firebase config, paste it in here. These are public keys, so don't worry about seeing them here. Okay, and we're telling Cursor that we want to add Firebase Auth and to allow users to log in, and we want like a new navbar component and a sign-in component as well. Okay, we'll accept that. We want a new navbar component. We'll paste that in there. Sign-in component. Okay. We already installed Firebase. Let's go back here. It wants us to put in the config. Well, it's not Survey Designer. That was actually... Paste this stuff in there. Oh. Okay, there's our Firebase config. And let's go ahead and we'll just log the user as well. Go back to our app. Okay, it says we're an anonymous user. Oh, look at that little sign-in thing there. That's interesting. Okay, so I think it created a component, but it's just assuming that I'm logged in if I'm an anonymous user. So let's change that a little bit. Okay, giving it some more instructions. Basically, we want to sign in if the user is logged in as an anonymous user. We got some changes to nav bar. Okay, we're making it into a dialog so that we can see it on top of whatever components we had. All right, here we go. Sign in. Now we see this dialog. Great. Let's try sign in with Google. Okay, we'll just cancel that. Okay, so this is a decent start, but we need a few things. I need to be able to get out of this. If I click out away, we need to fix this little border. We need to fix this button. We want to have a more consistent color scheme. So let's go ahead and give it the feedback for all of those changes. Okay, so we'll ask for all those changes. Okay, it has some big SVG in here. I'm not sure exactly what that is. Oh, okay, well that looks really nice actually. Okay. All right, yeah, that looks good. Let's implement the following changes. Okay, some more changes to make that look a little nicer. Okay, that looks great. At least this part does. Okay, we also added the sign in or register logic there. Got a little error. Okay, we got it. Yeah, we got to pass the auth. All right, sign in or register. Great. I'm just going to sign in with Google. Okay, Volo builds. All right, so I should be signed in. Wonder if we're logging that anywhere. Okay, we're getting some errors. Let me see. If I refresh, I'm still signed in seemingly. Let me log the user. Okay. All right, so look at that. We're signed in. We got the email, display name. Great. Let's sign out. What does it say now? Okay, now we are an anonymous user. There we go. If I refresh, yep, I'm still that anonymous user. I'm going to sign in. I'm going to sign in with Volo builds. Okay, there's some errors, but it does sign me in. Okay, so let me just see what these errors are about, because things seem to be working, but there are some errors here. Let's see if it knows about these errors. Okay, it's trying to use email password when doing the Google sign-in. Got a little fix for us. Well, kind of a bigger fix, I suppose. Okay. Oh, cool. All right. So we can see our email now. Okay, cool. So we can actually see a username now. Let's sign out. Okay, no errors. Sign in with Google. Choose my user. Awesome. Okay, cool. We got some of these cores. I'm not exactly sure what that's about, but I'm just going to leave it alone for now. Bottom line is we are actually authenticated now with this UI. And if we go over to Firebase, we actually see these users now, some of the anonymous ones that I've signed in as well as my actual email. Okay, I just want to make a quick styling change here. Let's go to Tailwind. Okay, let's make it, let's give ourselves a little bit of a theme, and then we're going to use that color in all of the UI elements that we've built so far. Okay, that's looking pretty nice. If I sign out, sign in. I don't really want it to be in the header like that, but that's fine. Just want that to be black. The add option. I'll change that to custom blue. And if you notice, I just used the autocomplete there. It just, when I highlighted the text, it knew what I wanted to do. So I started using the custom blue there. Okay, and then in the sign-in screen, I think I had one other. Yeah, I didn't want it here. Okay. Okay, great. Now we got the authentication on the front end in place. What we're going to do next is actually use the token that is generated by the UI to send it to our server. We're going to build the server, and we're going to add the functionality to save the survey that we created. And it's going to be associated with our user so that the next time we open the app, we're going to see the survey that we've been working on. And eventually we'll create the list of surveys so that you can switch between them. All right, let's go to our server. It is currently empty. I'm going to go ahead and say, please create a basic Express server. We will use Firebase Auth to authenticate requests, so please add some middleware for that. That's going to make sure that every request that comes to our API gets checked for the token and resolved to a specific user. Let's create a saved survey endpoint that will receive data as seen in the survey preview to a Mongo collection. We can use Mongoose. Mongoose is a third-party library that's going to make our integration with Mongo a little bit smoother and add some data structure. Let me know the dependencies to install. Let's go to the server, install the dependencies on the server side. Looks like it automatically added cores for us, which is nice. That's something that always trips people up. Let's make it run on port 3001, just so we differentiate it a little bit. I'm going to say this is a good start, but let's do the following. Make it a little more formalized. Now, if you have past projects, it can still be a lot easier to just take things that are working from those projects and use them as a boilerplate for your new project. So in this case, I'm actually going to go to my QuirkOn code base and I'm going to copy paste some of these things that I know just work. And you know, what it suggested probably works out of the box, but I think it'll work a lot more smoothly if I give it some code that actually works as inspiration. Okay, and we're going to create a db.js file. Right, that's something that I also used there. So this file is going to handle all of our interactions with the database. Okay, we'll create a .env file. This is going to store our environmental variables. And we'll have to install a couple more things here. Please update this file to connect more in the same way as this. Again, just using a past project as inspiration. Okay, so we just made a bunch of changes. Let's just review the code to make sure it actually makes sense. All right, so we got our app. We're initializing the Firebase app. We're using cores, we're using body parser so that we can accept JSON. We have this verify token thing as a middleware, and we're using it in this endpoint. So that means we're going to go here first. We're going to check with Firebase that this is a legitimate token that got passed. Then we're going to take the questions from the body, take the user ID, and then we're going to store that with the save survey method. Now, save survey is not being imported, so here we go. We'll import it. Okay, we got this db.js file, but why is it not? There we go. There we go. Now it's importing it. Okay, good. Okay, so we got the save survey. Now I'm gonna configure, I already configured, I configured the Mongo environmental variables in my .env file, and as well as my Firebase URL. I'm gonna go ahead and get the survey account key, which is gonna be used server side to verify the tokens. That's gonna be back in Firebase. Okay, so I'm gonna go here to project settings, and then service accounts, and to generate new private key. I'm going to save this as the service account key in my folder. Okay, let's try to start the server up. I use nodemon, which just restarts the NodeJS server every time I make some file changes. All right, so we got some errors. Cannot find .env. Okay. Let's go ahead and install .env. Great. Nodemon index. Okay, next error. Cannot find module MongoDB. Did I never install that? Okay, and now it is working, and hey, look at that, it actually connected to Mongo. So let's go back to the survey designer, and we are going to actually call that endpoint now. So to get it to talk to the server, I'm going to have it create a new file that is used for all of this sort of communication that's going to attach the token to every API call that it makes. It'll also help me centralize all of these API calls and how I format the requests. So it's going to be one point to work with rather than having all the API calls scattered across my code base. Okay, let's add a button to save survey. When this is called, we should call the save survey endpoint defined in index.js, but we should create a new file called servercom that will make the actual API call using fetch. And by the way, here's why I like to have both the front end and the back end in one repository in one language. It's going to make it so much easier for the models to understand what you want and modify files across the full stack. So this is really a convenient way to do it. Okay, we got a new servercom file. Put it in the utils. Implement your logic to get the user's auth token here. Okay, well, I guess we'll have to do that. We're using Firebase Auth, so let's use that for the app token. Okay, it's written some auth token stuff here. I'm going to move that function to the top. Okay, we're going to re-abstract this a little bit. So this is going to be a much cleaner way that this is implemented. We're going to have this generic API request. We'll be able to add the token to everything, and we'll be able to define our actual API calls very simply like this. Okay, let's give it a try. All right, so we have the button here now to save a survey. Let's see what happens when I save this. Error saving. Forbidden. Okay. Let's see if it's made. It doesn't look like it made its way to the server itself. Server is running on 3001 /API/save survey. Is that the endpoint that we have here? Yes. Okay, we're basically asking it to do some troubleshooting. And the way we have servercom arranged could be improved, okay? Okay, so we're not sending that bearer prefix. Great. And then for the verification, I don't think we need any changes. Okay. So let's try this again. Let me save survey. Survey saved successfully. Wow, okay. Well, let me double check Mongo. And we should probably have some kind of visual confirmation that it's saved, so we'll add that, but let's go ahead and check Mongo to see if the survey actually got saved. I'm using Studio 3T. And hey, look, there is a new collection, Survey Mage. Let's check it out. Sweet, so it looks like our survey got saved. We got the user ID here. It generated a unique ID for the survey. I think I'm gonna go with just a plain string here though, instead of the Mongo object ID. And we're probably gonna wanna add question IDs. there's probably a lot of thought that we should put into how we structure the questions and how we organize them in the database, because we might want to reuse questions in different surveys. We might want to change the text. So I'll have to think about all of that. But for now, we have this end-to-end integration in place. We're verifying the user. We are storing their survey with the user ID. So we should be able to start building the list of surveys and the ability to create new surveys. So let's focus on that next. Okay, so let's do a few different things here. We'll move the button to the top and we'll have some sort of animation to suggest that it actually saved. And then we should have some kind of maybe a hamburger menu over here to see the various surveys that you've previously configured. And then we should also add an analyze button as well next to the save survey so that we can see what the results were that came in, but we'll get to that a little bit later. I'm going to go back to the code. I like making lists like this with relatively simple features so that it can implement many things at the same time if the context is close enough. All right, there we go. That looks a little bit better. All right, making some additional changes here to make it so that it looks nice and clean when we actually save that survey. All right. Cool, it's saved. I'll say nearly. Okay, there we go. Now it's looking pretty perfect. If I click saving, saved, and then it's back to save survey. Awesome. Let's make this one just a little bit shorter. There we go. Okay, now if we look in the database, every time I'm pressing that, it's saving the survey as a new object. So we're going to want to add a survey ID, and we'll also want to, create new survey button or something like that so that we can actually make a new one of these. Okay, so here once again, I'm making a full stack change. We're gonna add a survey ID and I'm gonna pass it from the UI. I'm gonna make a change here. I'm gonna send it to the server. In the server and the database, we're gonna need changes to respect this new ID that we generate. So this is really gonna involve many files, and it really helps to just tag all of them. Now that I think about it, I actually want to generate the ID on the back end when I first create the survey so that I have more control over the primary key in my database, that it's, so it's not submitted by the client. Okay, so we got a pretty complex query here, but we're essentially trying to add this feature across all these different files. And because I keep my file sizes pretty short, I think this should work in the context that Cursor has. Okay, so we got a new endpoint here. Okay, we're using it as the primary key, so that's really good. adding the button in the nav bar, and then the survey designer. We don't want the nav bar in the survey designer though. So I'm going to reject this change, and we're going to have to tell it, is there really? Okay, so in this case, we're going to have to modify actually app.js so that we have this create survey option, and we're going to pass that to the nav bar so that we can pass that survey ID to the designer. All right, so obviously the scope was a little bit more than Cursor could handle, but kind of right at the edge there. Okay, I like that it actually added this as anonymous check. Still not doing anything with on new survey though. We might have to start a new chat. Okay, it's starting to get kind of confused because now it thinks I'm going to add a new button here for the new survey, but I actually don't want that. But I do want to set questions to, empty when that is called. Okay, let's just ignore that for now. We might have to do a new chat. This doesn't look like it's getting used. So let's see what happens right now. Okay, I'm going to refresh. Okay, let's just say okay. Let's say I try to save that. Well, that doesn't seem to work anymore. I don't know why. Okay, let's try a new survey. The new survey button doesn't do anything. Okay, clearly it was a little too much context. I'm going to try to break up this task and think through it a little bit more, how we should route this. Okay, actually look at that. We don't have UUID defined. We need to install that. Maybe that's the problem. Oh, looks like we never actually imported it. Okay. So doing stuff like that with a lot of scope, or when you're trying to change a lot of files, can be a little bit risky, which is why I actually recommend in those cases when you're about to make some big changes across many files, you should just do a git commit to essentially save your work, and then you can roll back the changes that you make so that you're back to a working functional application. Because right now, I'm in a little bit of a risky situation where, I'm not really sure what changed or what's broken, and I'm just going to have to try to figure it out now. Okay, if I click a new survey, there we go. Now we got, no questions. Now Now let's try to save it. Okay, saving, saved. Okay, excellent. Let's see if we have that survey in here somewhere now. Okay, there it is. And we see the ID is not that object ID kind of thing anymore. It's actual universal unique ID. Okay, great. Now if I refresh, yeah, it's gonna essentially, I wonder what happens if I go now and try to save this. Okay, it doesn't work because I need to click that new survey button to create a new survey. So we should probably have some kind of central landing page without this view by default. This actually makes me think that I should create a different sort of landing page here which shows me all of my surveys, and then I can go edit them, or I can create a new survey. So I'm going to move this button out. We're going to have like a landing page design here, and then this view is only going to be invoked when we edit a page, when we edit a survey, or when we create a new one. So we'll go to app. I want to create a new survey list, but as I do this, I realize that like my surveys have nothing but the unique identifier right now to identify them. So I think I'm going to add a title and save that as well, so that when I retrieve the surveys, I can show them in this list and it'll look a little bit cleaner. Cool, making some full stack changes. And again, I can't save it yet, so we'll get to that. Okay, so we're going to ask it to create a new survey list component, and we will show the surveys as well as a big kind of button to create new surveys that's going to replace the new survey button in the nav bar. And we're also asking it to make the relevant changes in all of the other files. Here's our survey list component. Okay, we're using a flag to decide which view to have. I'm going to remove the button from the nav bar. Add the relevant endpoint to get the surveys. Add the relevant database call. And then make sure we can actually fetch those surveys. Okay, so when we refresh this, all right, we got the big button, but it's not retrieving all of our surveys. So let's see what's wrong. Looks like get surveys not defined here. There we go, added the import. I wonder why it is not finding it for our user here. Okay, it should respond with the list of surveys. Let's check server comm. I think it needs to extract that object. I'm going to start a new chat to refresh the context because I had like 5 or 6 files in there, and it's just going to be more accurate if I have less context. Okay, we got some changes here. Passing in that additional function. Survey list is going to have some updates. Okay. All right, look at that. Wait. I saw it for a second. Where'd it go? No. Okay, I think something is happening with, okay, so this looks good, but when I refresh, it all disappears. So I think there's some issue with my user ID. Maybe it's logging me in as anonymous at first, loading the list, and then not showing me. So let me go ahead and try to fix that. You're correct in your assessment. That's what I like to hear. All right, so I think it's because, yeah. All right. All right, awesome. Now when I refresh, I see all of my surveys. Amazing. Oh, I need some kind of back button. Actually, this seems like a good time to add routing to the app because I can't go back to the survey list, and that's something that feels intuitively like it should be possible. I will also add a button here, and then when users take the survey, I'm going to need a separate URL there to be able to resolve it to a particular survey. So let's go ahead and add routing to our project now. All right, we're going to add React routing, and that's dramatically simplifying the logic here, which is pretty nice. Okay, but when I scroll down, I see that it is making a mistake here, so I'm going to not accept that change. Handle new survey. Do I still need that? I don't think I do. I think that new survey is going to be in the survey list now. So I think I can accept the rest of this. I will go to survey list. Yes, we got that there now. Okay. Okay, now we're using the parameter survey ID. Okay, now I think I also need to actually install the React router. I don't know if it's a native module. Oh, looks like it also removed all of our Google Auth stuff here. So that's a problem as well. I'm going to copy that. Move forward. I like using, Control Z and Control Shift Z to be able to just see the changes. It's really helpful. Okay, use state and use effect, not in survey list. Sure, let's add that. Okay, yep, and now it's React Router DOM. Not in the server. Go to the UI. Okay, so when we arrive here, it's just the survey. Now let's click on this one. Okay, slash undefined. Well, that's not good. But I can go back now, which is an improvement. If I click a new survey, okay, that looks like it worked correctly. Okay, I saved that. Let's go back. There's my, okay, but it's undefined. So we need to, when we click on this, we need to pass the ID properly, and that's still an issue. The context here is already getting screwed up because it forgot some of the imports, so I'm going to start a new chat. All right, we're going to ask it to troubleshoot this and make sure we're getting the ID. Oh yeah, okay, it's responding with underscore ID instead of survey ID. That's pretty simple. There we go. Okay. Ta-da! Okay, great. But you know what? We want to fill in these values when we go to this kind of page. So let's do that. Oh, I think we don't have an endpoint right now to get a specific survey and hydrate the survey designer. So we're going to have to add a new endpoint for that. Okay, here we go. We're getting a specific survey now. That's good. New database logic. Good. Gotta actually call the endpoint. And then fill in the details when we get one. That doesn't look like it's quite working. Okay, there's some issue here. Get survey not defined. It's another import issue. All right, there we go. Okay, so if I go now to the base URL, it shows me the survey list. If I click on this, perfect. It shows me this. All right, let's add some questions here. Okay, we'll save that. Now we'll go to our list. It looks like it knows we have 3 questions. I open it. Yes, we got our question list. Amazing, amazing, amazing. Okay, so we got routes now, and we can go and retrieve the particular survey. I'm curious if I open this in an incognito window, if it'll show me that survey. It will not. It will go to, because it's not the user, right? So we see that our security is working there. And if we just go to the base URL, we only see a new survey button because this anonymous user doesn't have any surveys yet. So our survey list is ready. Our designer looks pretty good. Next, let's add the ability to send these surveys out and collect the responses. For that, I think we're going to need to structure our questions a little bit better so that we can use the IDs of the questions as keys in the responses. That will allow us to match the questions to the answers when we go to analyze the responses. So let's take the question designer and then also tag a couple of other files and modify the structure of our questions so that they have an ID so that we can reference them later. Okay, I'm going to give a try running this across the code base and just see if it's able to identify all of the relevant files. Okay. Adding an ID here, that makes total sense. Then in Survey Designer, that actually looks the same. Question preview. Okay, yep, having an ID there makes sense. Survey preview. Looks like this is a pretty good idea because it's actually simplifying the code across a number of different files here. I'm not sure about that. We should be setting all of the IDs. Okay, I see. It's setting an ID in case there isn't one already set. Actually, I think this is overly precautious. I'm going to leave it as it was and then just delete my old surveys. We're going to need to add UUID and the server. I think we already have that. Yeah, we do. And then UUID for the UI. Yeah. Okay. Let's go to the UI, npm. Okay, we'll add UUID there. Theoretically, that should be everything. And yeah, I'm just going to delete all of my surveys. Okay, so we'll go back and we'll create our first ever survey. All right, so we got this survey and let's save it. All right, saved. Let's check the database. Cool. So now each of our questions have IDs. Looks like we're also saving this text. Oh, right. The text is the actual question. Okay. We might consider for options to have IDs, but I think that's overcomplicating it for the moment. So I'll just leave it like that. That's pretty cool. So it was able actually to find all of the different files when I ran across the code base. And I think that's because my code base just isn't very large right now. So it was able to find the relevant ones. Okay, let's go back to app.js. Actually, let's go to survey preview and we'll say this. We're going to actually create the survey taker experience. Okay, we'll actually start small, and I'm not going to have it build out all the endpoints at first because I think it'll just be too much context for it to handle. I'm going to ask it to create the survey viewer. Okay, created a new file, pasted the contents. Let's create the question viewer component. Okay, sure. That makes sense. And then we're going to update app.js. All right, we got the new route. I don't know. Okay, so now theoretically, if I just go to s/that, okay, well, it's got a sample survey for me. That's fine. We're going to go ahead and make it retrieve the actual survey. Okay, we're gonna have it actually retrieve the survey. Oh, okay. It's using fetch right in line here. We need to tell it about the server com file. Looks like this question viewer is assuming some different question types that are not really there. So let's change that. Okay, there we go. Let's see what this looks like. Okay, fantastic. This is basically that survey that I created, right? We can provide an answer. And then we can submit it. But we're going to need to actually create the endpoint to submit that. So let's do that now. I'm actually looking at question viewer and question preview, and they're pretty much the same. I just feel like we could avoid some of the details and then let's merge question viewer and question preview into a single component that receives prop. Okay, we'll merge those two components real quick. I think that'll be cleaner. Question display. Yeah, I kind of like that. Question display. Okay. And we'll go to survey preview. We'll use the question display. It's using isPreview as the flag. That looks good to me. Excellent. Now we can just delete these two files. Okay, cool. Now let's go ahead and add the logic to submit the survey. Okay, another full stack update. We're going to add a new endpoint, update the database. We're going to update the way that we communicate with the server, and then actually use that function here. Why they use navigate? Oh, okay. This is going to redirect you. Okay, sure. That's fine. Now it's failing to load the survey. Something went wrong there. Index. Okay. Get survey is not a function. I think it messed up the DB update. Yeah, it somehow deleted it. Okay. Let's go ahead and undo the changes to DB and we'll see. Okay. One problem is it's supposed to be just for that user ID. So we're gonna have to modify that. Yeah, I think we should just keep it like that with the survey ID, not restricted by the user, so we can actually see the survey. Okay, it's having an issue retrieving it for some reason. Maybe it also screwed up the changes here. Oh, that looks good. Okay, I guess we... Oh, okay, there we go. It was a parameter issue. Okay, now when we go here, what, the checkboxes aren't working. Okay, that's annoying. And I deleted the working checkbox, I think. Does it work when I configure the survey? No. This is an issue because I deleted those other files, so let's look at what I had in question viewer over here. Hey, look at that. Actually, all of this is broken now. That's a real bummer. Okay, but now it works here at least. Okay. So it does work there. We just need to make it work again in the survey preview. Okay, it was using the index. It was when we added the IDs, I think we broke it. Okay, there we go. Great. So when I configure it, I can set something, and then when I'm taking the survey, let's go ahead and submit it. See what happens. Survey submitted successfully. Okay. Now it's taking me back to this page, which is totally fine. Let's take a look at our responses collection. All right, awesome. Look at that. We got answers for all of the different questions. Fantastic. got a little submitted at. Got the survey ID. Excellent. Okay, now I want to see at least the number of responses here. And I also want to limit the responses to 1 per user. And I'm going to use that anonymous user here so that it's not going to be perfect. Like, you can still open an incognito window and take it again. But I think this is the way most survey platforms would actually work. Unless you're doing something like verifying their email, which is a little bit out of scope for the project I'm working on here. So let's go ahead and add a number of responses here. And then we'll start working on the analytics dashboard. Tagging the relevant files. All right. Nice. Look at that. We got 1 response. Actually, let me limit it to 1 per user. Looks like we didn't submit a user ID, so that'll have to be added to this. Okay, so it's a pretty hefty request here, but we'll see how it does. Okay, it's adding the new has submitted response endpoint, and we're including the response and we're including the user ID here as well. All right, looks good. New endpoint used in server comm. Cool. Okay. Okay, that looked pretty good on the surface. Let's see what happens if we go here, because I already submitted it. Okay, it failed to load the survey. My response did not have that initially, but we could also have messed something up. Okay, has user submitted response not defined. Maybe we have to modify server. Right, the response we'll delete that first response. Thank you for your response. Okay, that's great. If I go here again, awesome, this is what it's telling me, right? But if I go to this in an incognito window, I should be able to, okay, failed to load survey. I wonder why. It's probably about my user ID. Yeah, we shouldn't care about user ID anymore though. Must be this new endpoint that's not working. Let's just see if it's actually calling that endpoint. Well, in that case, yes. But what about in this case? No, it's not. Okay. You know what? I think it's when we go to the survey. It's when we go to the root directly instead of going to the base. I don't know if we're signing in or not. User not authenticated. But let's see if I go here first. And then I go here. No, still an issue. Okay, looks like at some point our anonymous user thing stopped working here. Yeah, okay, at some point that got removed. So let's go ahead and add it back. All right, there we go. Now when we go to this, we are anonymous, but we can submit an answer. Okay, thank you for the response. If I refresh, I've already taken it, right? So now if I close that and I go to this again, it'll be a new session. So I should be able, yeah, I can take it again. Perfect. Okay. And now we got 2 responses to that survey. Amazing. The cool thing is, since I added IDs, I could still move these around and then all of my analytics are going to work properly. Speaking of which, let's go ahead and work on the analytics dashboard for this. Now that I think about it, my questions don't really have numeric things, which I want to show on the dashboard. So let me go ahead and add a new question type here that's going to be some kind of number. Question designer. And then in question display. Oh. You know what, let's just not worry about that right now. Okay, if I type letters it doesn't work, but if I type numbers it does. Let's just say I'm 75. Okay, we'll save the survey. Wait, what? Invalid numeric questions. Okay. It's because we don't have any of this min-max thing. Yeah, let's just not do that. Cool. Okay, this way I'll have some fields that I could more easily put on a graph that's going to show like some kind of trend line or something like that. Let's create a new component called Survey Analytics that will... We're just going to go for a really open-ended thing to see what it does for us, and then when we see what it does, we'll kind of hone in on a more specific. So let's see what it... Okay, we're going to use recharts. Sounds good. Okay, this is going to be our survey analytics component. Okay, we're going to allow to open that page. I actually want to use routing rather than this. Okay, so I'm just going to Control Z, remove that. Okay, we gotta have a new route. Got a new endpoint for getting all the survey responses in an aggregate way. Well, actually, it looks like it's not doing it in an aggregate way, but we'll definitely want to do that eventually. Yeah, right now it's just getting all of the survey responses. We're going to want to do some aggregation. And I know that it's not importing it. There we go. Oh, that's in the survey list. Okay. Why not? Okay. Let's see. Question type. What's your name? Let's see. Okay, so it's not a very meaningful meaningful chart so far. Let me go ahead and give it the example of my data so that it maybe has a better idea of how to hook all of this together. Okay, please update this component to work with these data structures. Okay, there we go. That's a little better. Okay, let's take the survey another time. So now it's able to show that. Now this isn't very good production approach, of course, because we're just shuttling the entire response set to the UI. So we're gonna have to think about how we do that for various widgets. So maybe we actually have a dashboard designer view and then the actual dashboard with the view of the data. That way we know how we're going to present it, and then when we're presenting it, we're going to actually pull the data in an aggregate way so that we're not pulling all of the responses into the UI at once. Okay, so let's go ahead and change this to be like a dashboard designer sort of thing, and then we will have the dashboard with the actual data on it. Okay, so we want to shift the way we do analytics. We'll now have a dashboard designer, and this current component that we're on will become the widget designer. We'll follow a similar structure to what we do when we create questions and add them to the survey. And I'm tagging all these files so it has an idea of what I'm talking about. And then let's add a dashboard view component as well. Okay, this is our dashboard designer. We'll add a new component. This is our widget designer, which the survey analytics becomes. I think. I need to just double check. Yeah. And then this is our dashboard view. The dashboard designer is what we actually want to show, I think, in app.js. Okay, I'm just using autocomplete there. All right, let's see. Fetch dashboard. Okay, it's trying to do some kind of fetch dashboard thing. Okay. Well, you know, there's a lot of context here because it just created multiple files and I'm referencing multiple files here. So I'm going to open a new chat to sort of reset that and have it correct the new files that it created. Just copy pasting the bugs, and then I'll also attach the server com for context. Okay, so let's update. Okay, sure, I guess we got a new endpoint here. What do we need this survey questions for? I'm not sure that this is a useful endpoint because we already have a get survey endpoint. Just going to return the full survey. So I'm not going to accept that change. And let's go create a new file, widget display, in the components. Oh yeah, I guess that makes sense because we have like this question display, but we never had a widget display. Yeah, okay. Yeah, we don't need a survey questions. Let's use the get survey endpoint instead. Okay, sure. We're basically getting the survey questions and then, okay. Yeah, there's the widget designer. Do we need to change anything in index? I don't think so. Okay. Yeah, there's no fetch dashboard though. Okay, it's getting some info for this dashboard. I guess that's fine. Let's just see. Okay. Wow, when I switch to this, okay, that looks pretty neat. It looks very similar to that other layout. So let's go back and see. Okay, if I look for this survey, I go to analyze. Okay, the analyze responses doesn't do anything. So that's the first problem. If I click here, okay, that goes there, but then we got some errors. Let's see. Any more detail? Where is that happening? Oh, it's trying. Okay. Dashboard view. Okay, in dashboard view. It's cool that it tried to add some drag and drop already for us. We're going to be able to move these widgets around. That's awesome. Okay, yeah, it's basically just setting the default to an empty array. So we don't have any widgets. Yeah, okay. All right, my first survey. Let's see. Which option do you like? We'll do a bar chart, and then okay, preview widgets is not iteratable. And this stuff can be really intimidating, but you just got to roll forward and just keep trying to figure it out. At this point, I've made like 5 new files. It's going to be way too difficult for me to go back and try to redo my analytics. So it's much easier to just figure out these errors and keep moving forward. And you'll find yourself much further ahead than you would expect. So I'm going to go ahead and copy that. Actually, I want to preview okay, so first I just want to be able to preview a widget as well. Okay. Okay, yep. It was about the drag and drop. Okay, that's not really what I wanted to see though. Oh, looks like we lost the widget rendering at some point when we iterated and made all those additional changes. So, okay, it added a bunch of dummy data, but we want to use actual data. Okay, so I'll just say, but we want to use the actual data from our survey for the particular question. And I'll give it an example of my responses. Okay. Filtering. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I like this filter that it added because now it's going to narrow it down to the answers that actually have an answer for that particular question. Okay, looks like it's talking about using a different library this time. Instead of recharts, it is trying to use chart.js 2. Let me compare that real quick. Let me switch to charts.js 2. Just kind of curious to see what that looks like. I'm going to go to package and just remove. This is the wrong package. We'll remove recharts, then npm install. Okay. Responses.filter is not a function. That's back in that server com. Okay, now it's just getting the responses. I mean, I guess that's fine. Oh, hey, look at that. I like this. That's a pretty nice chart. Wow, I really like the visualization here. Very cool. Okay, now when we try to add the widget, we still get this issue, so let's go ahead and fix that. That's on the dashboard designer. Okay. Oh, it had a couple of changes, I guess. Okay, that's fine. Very cool, but that's taking up the entire thing. Okay, that's kind of funny looking. Let's screenshot that and then we'll figure out what's the styling problem there. Okay, I'm attaching the image to give it an idea of what is happening visually. And I'll also tag the widget display, which is probably where the issue is. Fixed height set on the chart container. Okay. Okay, hey, look at that. That was looking really nice. Let's see if I add another one. Okay. I think this line chart is maybe not working really well with this. Let me take the survey again, so I'll give another. Okay, let me tell it about the line chart being weird. Okay, it's going to make some changes for the line charts. Actually, is that what I... Yeah, actually, I guess that kind of makes sense. Oh, let me go. And I'm going to want to block anonymous users from being able to see the analytics for that dashboard. Okay, nice. Look at that. Cool. Now we're getting some cool widgets in here. Okay, let's try to save it. I'm not sure if that did anything. Okay, we'll go back to... Okay, we'll have it make the full stack change and make the button work kind of like we have in the survey designer as well. Okay. I'm not sure why it just deleted this get survey responses endpoint. Okay, I'll just accept it for now, and then we'll get it back in there in a minute. Wait, what? I'm just going to copy that. I'm a little concerned about this change, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. Saving, save failed. Okay. Why is that? Get dashboard is not defined. It keeps forgetting to reference the file import. Oh, we do still have the survey responses. Okay, never mind. Okay, it's saved. Wonder where it saved it to. Is there a new dashboards collection? Yeah, there is. Okay. Okay. looking at the dashboard here. Awesome, look at that. It stores the question ID and the survey ID, the title for the chart, and that's our list of widgets. That's fantastic. Now we're going to want to open that dashboard whenever we go to the analytics page for that. Oh, look at that. It actually already works. Yes. Okay. Amazing. Amazing. So now we get to see that. And so let me go ahead and add maybe a pie chart of favorite option. Okay. Can we drag it? Oh, yeah. Sweet. We got drag and drop. Okay, we'll save this dashboard. Let's go ahead and answer the question again, and we will answer C this time. Oh, well, this is nice, right? It's not showing us the widget for this dashboard because we're not the user, but we should really just redirect completely when we go here. Like if I go /survey, interesting. Yeah, I'm not going to be, I shouldn't be able to save it, but I shouldn't be able to see this either. I'll fix that in just a second, but let's submit another answer with A. And if we refresh this, oh, whoops, I put another one in A. Okay, great. But hey, you can actually see that it is, it's reflecting the latest data now. So we can see on these widgets, it's using the latest responses. So let's say for the question here, I'll say great, and I'll pick B this time. Okay, there we go. We see this reflected. We got another answer in B here. So this is a simple dashboard right now. I can obviously continue to improve it. I can add new widgets. I do want to eventually add some filtering and things like that, but I think this is a pretty good place to wrap this up. Actually, let's do one last thing. Let's go ahead and make it so that a random user can't see this and can't see that survey editing option either. Okay, got a new survey access endpoint. Just delete some of these comments. Okay. Let's see. Okay, so that's not working for me right now because I'm an authorized user and I should be able to see this one. I'm basically just asking it to double check its work. This is probably not the cleanest way to extract that ID, but let's give it a try. Okay, I see it for a fraction of a second, but then it brings me back here. I'll start a new chat to clear the context. Okay. Uh-oh, did it not actually have any changes? No, I don't want to allow access if it's an anonymous user. That's actually absolutely not what I want to do. Okay, so basically it seems really certain that this should work. Let me double check and see what is going on here fundamentally. Okay, so for protected root, so we're doing this kind of, okay, so we're wrapping does this work like that? Don't I have to, yeah, don't I have to do that? This is a confusing implementation. This seems actually even more complicated. I'm a little worried. But I'll give it a try, I guess. I don't know. Okay, let's just try it. Hooks. Use authorization.js. Okay, now it's using a new router. Oh boy. Yeah, I think I'm gonna have to go back, undo. I can go all the way back, yes, to these routes. And I'm just going to think for myself, and I'm just going to design a solution without AI for a minute. Okay, so when it goes to those paths, all I really need to do, and let me delete this hooks. Okay, all I really need to do is check on first load if it's the right user. It created those endpoints for me. And then if it's not that user, I'm going to redirect them to home. So, okay, if I go here, that's great. So let's go, please check. Okay, so my user can see it, but can the anonymous one? No, they cannot. Okay, see, there it is. Here's the thing, right? How long did I just spend working with AI to try to make this work? And it just didn't, right? I mean, I was just spinning my wheels, but when I got to it, it was pretty quick. So you do still end up in those traps sometimes where it's easier to just think about it for yourself and then implement the solution. Let's go ahead and do the similar thing. And let me just read through this to make sure it kind of makes sense. We're doing it here still in app.js. So let's take that same approach. Now we're going to ask it to take the same approach and make a generic function to make it a protected root, and then it'll use that in both of those cases. I think this is kind of the protected root thing that it was going for before. Yeah, we actually don't need this dashboard access. We can use the same thing. Okay, I can see my survey, and some random user cannot, and they can't see my analytics either. Amazing. Okay. We'll just kind of okay. Oh, we need a little button here that says copy survey link. Okay, we're going to copy it to clipboard, and we're going to show a little toast that says copied. Copy link, there's the button. Okay, copied to clipboard. And now if we go to that URL, awesome. Well, okay, submitted a response. Let's check out the, okay, we got to fix the analytics button. Yeah, it's pretty straightforward. Okay, let's add a little widget. All right. Cool. Now if we go and add a new response, we can see it update. All right, there it is. I think this is a pretty decent place to stop. We built a survey builder, we built an analytics dashboard, we added security. There's a ton of stuff here. I originally wanted to also make it so that you could use AI to customize the questions based on what you were looking for, but I think this video is already really long, so I'm gonna save that for another video where I'll show you how to enhance an existing product like this with AI so that you can actually make it a part of your product. Okay, so before I get this deployed, there's one little missing piece, which is just having a logo, and this is what I like to do. Nowadays, you can go to your favorite image generator and just get a logo out of there. There's some icon generating services. I don't think they're absolutely necessary. Let's just do it here. Okay, that doesn't look too bad. I think I'll go with it. So unfortunately at this point, the audio portion of my recording got really messed up. So I'm doing this voiceover now for the remainder of the video. So here I'm just removing the background from the image, and I'm going to create a favicon, which is the little icon that displays when you go to a particular website. This will also act as the logo for my app. This is the website that I like to use because you can just upload an image and it will generate the favicon as well as other sizes that you might want to have in your public assets folder. Generating the package, and then I'm going to download it. We'll just take all the files in there and then go and find our public assets folder in the UI portion of the project and go ahead and paste and replace anything that was already there. Now I'm just going to rename a couple of these images to what is sort of default in React. And this way things will just work out of the box. All right, you can see it in the top there. It has the little icon. I also want to use it in my nav bar in the top left. So here I'm just adding the logo to my source, and there it is on the top left. And I spent a little bit of extra time just making it the right size and color. So that's the final version of the nav bar right there. Next up, I'm going to modify the index.html file. And what I want to do here is set all of the different properties so that when a website renders a preview for my website, it is going to look nice and proper. It's not just going to be a blank sort of URL with some mystery. It's going to have, you know, the logo displaying. It's going to have a title, a description. This is going to help any website that's going to share a link to mine. We don't want it to just say create React app. Updating the logo URLs there. Okay, and now I'm ready to actually deploy. I'm going to be using Cloudflare pages for the first time. And the way that I would like to deploy it is using the CLI. I did some research and figured out that this Wrangler CLI, or command line interface, is the most practical way to actually deploy it. But before I do that, I want to actually build the app. And one tip that I share here is that you should set this generate source map flag to false when you run the build so that you're not exposing your unobfuscated version of your JavaScript publicly. I mean, JavaScript is always public, so somebody could potentially unscramble it and see your code, and that's fine. That's how every website in the world works. But I do like to just make it obfuscated and make it so that it's harder for somebody to figure out exactly how your application works. So I update the build command there, and then we're going to go ahead and run the build script. You'll see that it built everything into that build folder, and that is the public version of our application that we'll be able to serve on Cloudflare pages. One little thing I note here is that I am currently pointing to localhost, so that's going to be calling my own computer and not the actual server because we haven't actually deployed the server yet. Like I said, I wanted to use Wrangler, but this was my first time working with it, so I asked Cursor how to do that. And I have to say, this was a really smooth process actually. Right here I do Wrangler login, so we have this browser-driven authentication, which is super nice. Now the command line knows who I am, so it'll be able to deploy to my project. Here's the deployment command, and I'm specifying the project that I want to deploy to. Okay, looks like there was an issue. I think I also needed to configure this toml file. So let's go ahead and create that. This effectively is the configuration that Cloudflare Pages, the Wrangler CLI, is going to use to deploy the application. And then I had to get this account ID, and I searched for it for a little while, but eventually I found it on the Cloudflare website. If you go to Workers and Pages, Overview, and then you'll actually see it right there on the right. It's the account ID, so you can copy paste it there. Okay, let's try to do the deploy command again. Cool, so this time it actually worked. Going to the link, it didn't quite render what I was expecting, but if I go back to Cloudflare Pages and find my project, and then I go to visit it, and there it is. This is the original deployment, and it was really smooth, as you saw. I pretty much showed you all of the steps that you need to deploy the actual front end. But keep in mind, this is just the front end. So we still need to deploy the server, which has the API and all of the database communication. And we'll do that separately. We're going to use Google App Engine for that. But for now, it's pretty cool to see that the page just works. Here I'm linking it to the domain that I bought way at the beginning of this video, and again, this was pretty smooth. So because I used the Cloudflare Registrar, it already had all the DNS records configured properly, so I just go to this custom domains page, type in the name and enter, and it initializes and then pretty quickly becomes available. This makes it so that my website isn't just deployed on surveymage.pages.dev or whatever it is, but it's actually using the surveymage.com domain name that I registered with Cloudflare. Okay, there we go. We actually see it on surveymage.com now. And I like to also add both with www as well as without it, because for some reason DNS servers will resolve those differently. So just whenever you add custom domains pretty much anywhere, just add both of those. Okay, time to switch over to Google App Engine. And I'll be honest, I've been using this product for a while, but when I was recording this video, it was an absolute nightmare, and I ended up spending like half an hour reading Google Docs and figuring out why I was having some permissions issues with the project. It was definitely a mess. Ultimately, I do use Google App Engine because it allows me to control cost and the degree to which my application scales, but it was difficult here. I'll make a separate video talking about it and maybe some alternative backend deployment services that are good options. Looking back in the code editor here, we see the app.yaml, which is the control file which controls how the Google App Engine app is deployed. And here I'm using the gcloud command line interface to actually deploy that app. Again, you will need to download that from Google's website and then authenticate in a similar way to Cloudflare Pages, and then use the command line interface to select the project you want to work with, and then deploy to that project, specifying all of your parameters in this YAML file. All right, so it looks like it deployed, but then when I go to services and the version, there's some additional errors. So again, deploying the backend on Google App Engine was not the simplest. I ended up in the logs trying to figure out what was wrong. In this case, it was actually my fault because I didn't include a start command in my package.json, which is how Google App Engine knows how to actually start your application. So I'm going to go back and add that here. Okay, let's try to do gcloud app deploy again. Confirm where it's going. And you'll see, by the way, the URL there that uc.r.appspot or whatever, that's going to be the public server URL that you can use, and your UI should be pointed to that instead of localhost. So I'm going back to the UI code, the server com, which again is a central point at which I communicate with the server, and I'm going to update the base URL there so that it's calling the official API rather than localhost. I'm going to rebuild the application and then deploy it with the proper base URL. Okay, there's the build. Awesome. Okay, so it's deployed, and the Google Cloud deployment also finished. We see here when I go to the base URL, it cannot get / because we don't have an API route defined there, but the fact that it's giving me that response instead of server unavailable is a good sign, because it means that the app was actually deployed, because that's Express sending that response. All right, now when we go to the final product, we see here we're on surveymage.com. We are able to add some questions to our survey, and we should have pretty much a functional product. So if we save the survey, oh, I wasn't logged in here, so let me go ahead and log in. And when I do, I actually see those surveys that I had previously created. So we can see that it's calling, the official API. We are getting the details about those surveys, and that's pretty much the whole product. So that's it for this app, but let me know in the comments below if there are any topics you'd like to see me make more videos about. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.